So, a lot of people have been asking for my Season 4 Plus wishlist, and considering that Season 4 is rapidly approaching, I may want to give it now. I do have to be very careful about what I say though. I mean, how many people were asking for romance in MLP? Boom, Flash Sentry! And also, I specifically seem to be accidentally psychic. In my Crystal Empire review, I said some things that, if you watch the storyboards, come off as pretty humorous in hindsight. I was joking! Not that I'm disappointed, but still, I was joking! No, I'm not going to spoil anything about them here, but yes, they have gotten me rather excited for Season 4. And if you are avoiding them, they're basically a trailer for Season 4. They get you pumped while giving you as few details as possible. Part 2 of this list is going to deal with all the spoilery stuff I want to see. I wanted to specifically make this video with no spoilers whatsoever. Before I give my wish list, I should go over the things that I am expecting, as in it will hurt my opinion of the show if these things don't happen. You know, it's the simple stuff like Twilight's princesshood being addressed and explored, Twilight learning how to use her wings, Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo's relationship, getting to see the Equestria Games, and everything involving the storyboards. I'm also going to keep my wish list as plausible as possible. I mean, I'm not going to ask for something like Fluttershy becoming the evil dictator of Equestria by accident. And finally, I'm just really throwing ideas at a wall. I often ask Meghan McCarthy to write a Spike episode, because she obviously gets him. I mean, between Lesson 0, The Crystal Empire, and Equestria Girls, she really knows how to write him. I'm actually surprised that she hasn't written a Spike episode yet, 3 seasons in. An idea? Well, I've always been a fan of Groundhog Day plots, and since Spike seems to be everyone's servant, he'd be the perfect candidate for one. Could be that Spike is having a bad day and accidentally screwing things up, more than usual. Twilight is busy doing princess stuff, I guess, and is extremely agitated at him, and that might be why Spike is screwing things up. By the end of the day, everyone is disappointed in Spike, so he just wants an opportunity to fix everything. MacGuffin spell, and he ends up repeating the same day over and over again. At first he thinks that all he has to do is get all of his screw-ups right, but even after he does that, he's still repeating the same day over and over. The Groundhog Day loop is only broken when Spike gets annoyed or defeated enough to the point where he stands up to Twilight. Twilight learns that she may have been taking Spike for granted, and Spike gives us the moral of the episode. If you feel like you're being taken for granted, it's best to tell the person about it, rather than keep trying to appease the people who are taking advantage of it. And then they work things out, and then they have a big, happy, heartwarming ending. Does Meghan McCarthy have to write this episode? No, not really. But she has the best track record when it comes to Spike, and she understands the relationship between him and Twilight inside and out. Yeah, that plot is really rough, as most of these will be. And now you know why this list has taken me so long. Ooh, I want to see a Groundhog Day episode. Oh my god, I've got to turn that into my own fanfic. Now here's a strange wish. From what I've seen, Twilight does not seem to have a very high opinion of Pinkie Pie. In Griffin the Brush-Off, Twilight believes Gilda, someone she's never met before, over Pinkie. In Feeling Pinkie Keen, Twilight stubbornly refused to believe in Pinkie's pinky sense. In Baby Cakes, Twilight immediately assumes that Pinkie couldn't handle herself and had bitten off more than she could chew. In Mystery on the Friendship Express, she didn't even think that Pinkie was worth showing the clues, or even thinking that she would bite the cake. And I can go on and on and on. Now, Pinkie has a very good memory, so it makes me wonder, how long is it until she notices this pattern? Perhaps we can have an episode where Pinkie runs into a problem and goes to Twilight for help. Like in Baby Cakes, Twilight condescends to her, and for some reason or another, Pinkie finally calls her on it. It doesn't have to be anything like putting your hoof down, but I suppose it could be that episode done right. It could end up being a moral that once in a while you'll actually have to stand up to your friends. You know, it's really tempting for me to say that MLP should tackle any of my choices for an Admirable Animation. And you know what? Why not? I mean, just imagine one of the main 6 being shot into the future, and seeing their friendship has dissolved because of one of their absence or another horrible mistake. I think a story like that would fit perfectly in the show. But who would go into the future? Honestly, it could be any of them. Each story would be incredibly different, but they'd each be powerful. I won't say that any would be more affected than any other, because I highly doubt that that's true. It's just that each of them would be affected in deeply different ways. Who would I pick to go through that ordeal? The first choice that comes to my mind is Twilight, mostly because she's the only one who's done time travel before, and she'd be the most likely to go through it. Obvious moral is obvious that friendships do need continual effort to remain intact. The mask, let's be totally honest, isn't going to happen. Then again, you never know. If they deal with abusive relationships, with tact, actually that's a caveat for everything I'm saying, i.e. if I ask for a romantic interest, not that I am, don't give me Flash Sentry, it could be freaking amazing. As for Last of the Star Makers, they kinda already did something like that with A Bird in the Hoof. Obviously it could have been done much better because I hated that episode. However, if you gave Fluttershy something to defend, like an animal, from not the wilderness, but maybe ponies, it could give her her most in-depth character development to date. But yeah, as I keep updating that list, pretty much anything from there I think would make a good MLP episode. You know, like Samurai Applejack. Now this is the most obvious choice on the list because it's like on everyone's list. I want one of the CMCs to get their cutie mark. Oh yeah, you heard me. Let's think about this logically. It's highly unlikely for all three of the CMC to get their cutie marks at the exact same time, although it has happened before, so anything goes. Which one do I think is most likely to get their cutie mark first? Well, if the showstoppers did actually reveal their talents, then Sweetieville, because stage fright is easier to get over than pure stupidity. Their lack of a cutie mark brought them together, so if only one of them gets it first, it'll really test the strength of their friendship. There are many ways to take this. The most obvious one is having yet another jealousy story, where the moral is that you shouldn't make others feel bad for their success or good fortune, but a better way to take it is that friendship is stronger than what simply brought you together. It could also take the other Crusaders to interesting places. The two that didn't get their cutie marks may face self-doubt. Maybe Diamond Tiara would try to turn the one who did get her cutie mark first against the other two. Now here's a really interesting one. I obviously do want each of them to get their cutie marks eventually, but each of them should get their cutie marks in different episodes. If the first episode in that arc is them learning that their friendship is stronger than what brought them together, the second episode is where only one of the three doesn't have their cutie marks. Now that might lead whoever that is to a bit of a depression. It could also be a very heartwarming episode dealing specifically with insecurity. I want Rainbow Dash to have a solo song. I mean, come on, it's 3 seasons in, and she's the only one who hasn't had one yet. And yet, her voice actress is an actual singer. A really good singer as well. I mean, you gave Applejack her own song, and you've given Fluttershy like 2 of them. Not that I have anything against them, but still, come on. You see this map? You see this place right here? I want the main 6 to go there. Seems like an interesting place to visit. Might give us a horror-themed episode that pays homage to the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. There's obviously a ton of other places that they could go as well, not just inside Equestria. I mean, Saddle Arabia seems like a pretty interesting place to visit. I love desert-themed episodes. I would also like them to add more episodes that take place during seasons other than summer. It being winter, autumn, or spring doesn't even need to have anything to do with the episode. It could be there just for a nice change of scenery. Hell, you can even have more episodes take place on Nightmare Night or Hearthwarming Eve. No, not Hearts and Hooves Day. Never that one again. Never, ever, ever. In my Apple Family Reunion review, I said that plot, a character going to a family reunion, would be done better by any of the other main 6. So let's actually try it. If I could pick one of the main 6 to go to a reunion, it would have to be Fluttershy. Mostly because she's the only one of the main 6 whose family we haven't seen any of. The conflict? I don't know. Maybe Fluttershy became estranged from her family a long time ago for who knows why. Maybe they didn't treat her the best. Then you've got Rarity. We've already seen from just one appearance by her parents that Rarity has built her entire life to being entirely different than her family. So the conflict is already right there, right out in the open. The problem? At some point it'd probably end up being a rehash of Sweet and Elite, just changing up the friends for family. Although on some level it's a lesson that she probably has to learn, unlike Applejack who already knew the moral in Apple Family Reunion. Twilight and Rainbow Dash go hand in hand. We've seen in Ghostbusters that Twilight does not like to be considered the greatest thing ever. Of course, it's hard not to be by your own family after you've done even half the things that Twilight's done. Rainbow, on the other hand, loves to be considered the greatest thing ever. She's probably bragged about it to her family more than anyone else, to the point where they're probably not impressed anymore. Either one of them could lead to a moral that your family will always be proud of you, although the context would be different in each. Hell, tell both of those stories simultaneously. And Pinkie Pie, if you had her go to a family reunion, it'd definitely answer a shit ton of questions. And these plots don't necessarily have to be a reunion, as in a scheduled event, but just give them some extended interaction with their families. And yes, before you ask, I do know about things. No spoilers, remember? But I do keep up to date on everything. Equestria Daily, several blogs, TV tropes, the Twitter of every single writer on the show, everything. But yes, I would like any or even all of these scenarios to play out. But what about Applejack? Spike at Your Service is not a good episode. It's almost unanimous, but plenty of people have managed to enjoy it. I managed to enjoy it because it came closer than any other episode, with the exception of Applebuck season, to making an interesting character focus on Applejack. You know, probably everything wrong with that episode could have been fixed if you replaced Spike with Pinkie Pie, and played the It's Pinkie Pie Don't Question It card a lot, and fixed other minor details. She could easily feel extremely indebted to a friend, and her only other obligation is with her job, and she could have easily made many of the mistakes that Spike did, and actually have it be in character. Regardless, Spike at Your Service makes me realize what makes a good Applejack episode. To be frank, you've got to have things happen to Applejack. With the other main 6, they've all got flaws that will get them into trouble here and there. Applejack, however, doesn't seem to have a major character flaw. She's a really good foil, being honorable to Rainbow Dash's dirty tactics and fall with her friends, playing the straight mare to Pinkie's zaniness and Hearthwarming Eve, but we want to have a good solo Applejack episode. The answer on how to do that is simple. You've got to bring the conflict to her. Sort of like the super speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. Just don't make her or her family stupid. Here's the thing. Applejack is exactly where she wants to be in life. As in, she doesn't have any long-term ambitions. With no long-term ambitions or no character flaws, to make that kind of character interesting, you've got to put something she has value in at risk. The most obvious thing to put at risk is either her home or the health of one of her family members. Or her health. I don't know, an episode about Appleblossom getting sick and Applejack trying to keep her spirits up. Or one where Applejack gets sick or hurt and actually has to rely on others to do things for her. Or maybe their harvest wasn't good one year, and they have to start making some serious budget cuts. It doesn't have to be a heartbreaking tragedy. Applejack finds something like an anti-four-leaf clover that consistently gives her bad luck, and the episode is about trying to get rid of the curse by having her try methods that get increasingly ridiculous. Or you could just have her go crazy. That tends to work. I want to see Daring Do again, but I don't want the writers to pull an Apple family reunion. For those who don't know, it's basically when the fans start asking for a character to have some screen time, so they make an episode that does that, and doesn't do anything else. If you want to see more examples, just read the micro-series. Twilight is helping out at a library. How long did it take you to come up with that? Rainbow Dash is in a sporting competition. Really? Fluttershy is facing a critic. No, I'm not against slice of life stories, but you have to have something interesting happen, regardless of what kind of story you tell. Yes, it can be a day in the life, but it has to be an interesting day in the life. Basically, I don't just want the writers to say, here's Daring Do. Happy now? Then again, it's hard for an action hero story to be considered boring. But still, I don't want them to just do Daring Do because Daring Do! So what are my suggestions? Well, first of all, One Bad Apple canonized movies. Rainbow Dash is a palette swap of Daring Do. Why don't you give her a chance to play Daring Do in a movie? I wanted to see that so badly, I wrote a fic about it. Shameless plug! And yeah, if any of these don't happen, I'll probably end up writing a fic about it. Obviously, at some point, they're going to have more fantasy creatures, and I can't wait for that to happen. If there's one thing that I'd really like to see, I know it's mundane, but I'd like to see a genie plot. Just one thing. If you do a genie story, for the love of all it is, Pony, do not end it on, I wish I'd never met you. That's like the most cliched cliche ever. Another creature I'd love to see is an ochre jelly. Remember Smooze from G1? Yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Maybe Pinkie Pie found the recipe for one in what she thought was a cookbook, and accidentally bakes one up. We can have a whole lesson about not feeling guilt over accidents or something. Or maybe tying it into one of my earlier wishes, Twilight berates Pinkie for not being responsible in front of everyone, when Pinkie is already feeling horrible for launching a monster on Ponyville. And then we get a moral that you shouldn't be too angry at people for accidents. There are plenty of other beasts that could be injected into an episode. Maybe you could have Twilight build a golem in order to help her with her work, having bit off more than she could chew. But the golem takes more and more work, giving Twilight more and more time off. She'd probably either start getting lazy or go even crazier than she did in Lesson 0. And then you have the hippocampus, or as I suppose this show would call them, the sea pony. Twilight said that zombies didn't exist. What about ghosts or other undead creatures? Look, I got a book of this stuff so I can go on all day. There are pixies, sphinxes, thunderbirds. I'm rambling, aren't I? That's all I got for now, but by the time this video is made and goes up, I'm gonna have like 20 million new things. I'll probably maybe make at least one more of these videos, and in that one, I'm not holding back on the spoilers, so be warned. It's gonna be more of my predictions than my wish list.